Listen, this isn't a story about talent. This isn't about destiny choosing favorites. This is about a man who kept standing. When standing hurt more than falling, they laughed at him first. Not because he was weak, but because he refused to be serious in a cruel world. They said dreams are for children. They said reality will break you. They said pain will teach you your place. And pain came. Again and again and again. Every loss carved something out of him. Every goodbye stole a piece of his smile. Every fight took blood, breath, and belief. But here's what they never understood. He didn't smile because life was easy. He smiled so life wouldn't win. When hunger twisted his stomach, when fists crushed his body, when the world screamed, "Give up," he laughed back. Not because he was fearless, but because fear never decided his future. He was alone more times than he'll ever admit. He carried promises heavier than his own life. He watched people he loved fall, bleed, disappear, and still took one step forward. That's not madness. That's resolve. You see, strength isn't screaming. Strength is waking up hurt and choosing the fight anyway. Strength is knowing you might lose and stepping in front of danger regardless. Strength is saying, "I don't know how I'll win, but I know I won't stop." They call him reckless. They call him stupid. They call him impossible. But impossible is just a word, used by people who quit early. He doesn't fight to prove others wrong. He fights to keep his promise alive. A promise to himself. A promise to those who believed. When belief cost everything. And when the world pushes him to the edge. When there's no strength left in his body. No hope left in his hands. He grins. Because deep down, he knows something terrifying. As long as he can stand. As long as he can move. As long as his heart keeps beating. This fight isn't over. So tell me, when life keeps testing you, when you're tired, broken, doubted, and bleeding, do you laugh and move forward? Or do you finally let the world break you? Comment. Try me if you're still standing. The truth is, he was never special in the beginning. No legendary bloodline blessing him. No shortcut handed to him by fate. Just a body that got knocked down. And a heart that refused to stay there. Every time he lost. The world expected him to learn fear. Instead, he learned how much pain he could survive. They don't talk about those nights. The nights when laughter disappeared. The nights when silence screamed louder than enemies. The nights when doubt sat beside him like an old friend. He questioned himself. He questioned his dream. He questioned if believing was worth this much suffering. But quitting? That word never stayed long in his mind. Because somewhere deep inside him was a fire that humiliation couldn't extinguish. You see, when he loses, he doesn't say, "I'm not enough." He says, "I'm not done." Every scar became proof. Every defeat became training. Every tear hardened into resolve. He watched stronger men fall apart because their power disappeared. But his power was never just strength. It was will. A will so stubborn that even reality bends around it. When he couldn't win with fists, he won with endurance. When he couldn't overpower, he outlasted. When he couldn't see a way forward, he created one. That's why the world fears him now. Not because he's perfect, but because he doesn't break. They attack his body. They attack his pride. They attack his dreams. And every time, he stands back up with the same answer. I'm still here. Because giving up would mean betraying every version of himself that suffered to reach this moment. Because turning back would mean accepting a small life when his soul demands freedom. And freedom isn't given. Freedom is taken. Taken with bruised knuckles. Taken with empty stomachs. Taken with broken voices that still scream forward. So when people ask why he keeps smiling in hell, it's because he knows something they don't. Pain is temporary. Fear is temporary. Even defeat is temporary. But regret lasts forever. So let me ask you, how many times have you been knocked down and stayed there longer than you should have? How many times did you doubt yourself? Because the world made quitting look reasonable. And right now, with everything stacked against you, are you going to stand up again? Or will you let this be the moment you give up on your own dream? There comes a moment when pain stops being loud and becomes familiar. That's the moment most people misunderstand. They think getting used to pain means you're losing feeling. No, it means you've learned how to walk forward while carrying it. He didn't become fearless. He became tired of running, tired of watching others decide his limits, tired of being told what he can't reach, tired of hearing "be realistic" from people who never chased anything worth bleeding for. Every step forward felt heavier, not because he was weak, but because he was carrying everyone who believed in him and everyone who didn't. Pressure doesn't crush leaders. It reveals them. When the weight got unbearable, he didn't ask for relief. He asked for more strength. Because strength isn't built when life is kind. It's built when the world turns its back and waits for you to fail. There were moments. His hands shook. Moments. His breath felt borrowed. Moments. His smile cracked under exhaustion. But even then, his eyes never looked away from the horizon. Because dreams don't care how tired you are. They only ask one thing. Do you still want this? Not when it's exciting. Not when it's easy. But when you're alone, hurting, and nobody is watching. That's where real decisions are made. He chose to keep moving. Not because he was confident, but because stopping would hurt more. Stopping would mean accepting a life he never wanted. Stopping would mean letting fear write his story. And fear is a terrible author. So he kept fighting, even when his body screamed, no. Even when logic said retreat. Even when hope felt thin. Because courage isn't loud. Courage is quiet. Consistency. It's showing up after your last defeat. It's believing when belief feels stupid. It's smiling. Not because you're happy, but because you refuse to let pain win. And now tell me, how long have you been waiting for the perfect moment to start again? How many times have you delayed your dream because fear whispered, not yet? So I ask you this, if you keep waiting for courage to arrive, will you realize too late that it only comes after you move? There's a lie the world repeats until it sounds like truth. Know your limits. But limits are just fear. Dad learned how to speak politely. He was never the strongest, never the smartest, never the one with a perfect plan. And that's exactly why he scared everyone. Because nothing is more dangerous than someone who refuses to quit, even when logic says they should. Every scar on his body. Loss didn't slow him down. It sharpened him. Every time something was taken from him, he made a silent promise. No one I care about will fall again. That promise became heavier than fear, heavier than pain, heavier than his own life. People laughed at his dream, called it childish, impossible. But listen carefully. Every great dream in history was once mocked by people too afraid to try. He didn't need permission. He didn't need approval. He needed will. And will is born when you refuse to kneel. When the world cornered him, he didn't ask for mercy. He smiled. Not because he was winning, but because he knew something they didn't. As long as he could stand, the fight wasn't over. As long as he could breathe, his dream was alive. As long as his heart beat, defeat was temporary. That's the difference. Weak people ask, what if I lose? Warriors ask, what if I don't stop? So let me ask you now, how long will you keep shrinking to make others comfortable? How long will you let fear decide what you deserve? How many times will you say, one day, before one day becomes never? Because dreams don't die from failure. They die from hesitation. So tell me, will you keep watching others chase their destiny? Or will you finally step forward and fight for yours? Comment your answer.